47 down, one to go. Happy Sunday, folks. Welcome to the Molineux, as Steve Smith called it in his post-match interview after the game, where Norwich City haven't lost a game of Premier League football, and for 18 minutes they were 1-0 ahead and were off the bottom of the Premier League table. It was a quite disconcerting feeling, actually, at that point. And on the whole, to be fair, it was a much improved, vastly improved Norwich City performance, and one that I think Dean Smith and his team will actually leave the Midlands today, leave Molineux today, feeling quietly encouraged by what they saw ahead of next season, albeit there's a lot of mitigation in terms of what's to come and what's going to happen in the next few weeks and months. But all in all, it's finished here. Norwich City 1, Wolves 1. Teemu Pukki on the score sheet for Norwich. Norwich scored just after half time. Norwich played a free 5 at the back today. Dean Smith admitted that was partially to attempt to stop the bleeding from a defensive perspective. He feels they've been a bit too porous defensively, conceded too many goals, and that was his attempt to remedy that. So Ben Gibson came in alongside Hanley and Byram. Molineux and Aarons became wing backs. Gilmore and Norman were then the midfield to protect. Lise Malou then ahead of Kieran Dowell and Teemu Pukki. And actually, you look at the first half performance, it was good. It was good. Norwich defended essentially very well. They were structured. They looked organised. They were pretty competent. They looked pretty composed, actually, when crosses came in from either flank to try and defend them. And they limited the space in central areas as well. They were really clever throughout the afternoon. They used Wolves' two central midfielders, João Moutinho and Ruben Neves, to press the ball, and that probably stopped them dictating it in the way that perhaps they ordinarily would a game here at Molineux. So I think from a pure tactical perspective, first and foremost, actually this was a lot more encouraging than a lot of games we've seen this season, to be frank. It was a Norwich City team proving, albeit too little too late and all of the rest of it, but proving that they can take instructions, follow a game plan, and act out that game plan and do it to a high level of success, albeit the goal that they conceded, we'll get on to, was fairly soft. And I think actually when they sit down to analyse it, I think they'll be disappointed that they didn't do quite enough to prevent Ray and Aït-Nouri from nodding in after failing to clear a set piece, really. But all in all, Dean Smith felt they should have won the game. I think there's probably an argument to say they could have. I think a draw over the piece was probably a fair reflection, given Wolves' second half momentum. But bizarrely, I stand here feeling relatively encouraged by a Norwich City Premier League performance. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter too much. The end result isn't going to change. They have been relegated from the Premier League. They've got one game left. Materially, the only thing at stake now is avoiding finishing bottom. They have Spurs next weekend. Watford have Chelsea and lost 5-1 to Leicester this afternoon at home. So, it's a very, very small patch of encouragement that I think everyone should be feeling after this, but you have to take it game by game and on merit, and Norwich City deserve credit for some of what they did, albeit I thought Wolves responded. They tweaked things a little bit. They took Connor Cody off. He was given the runaround by Teemu Pukki, who I'll get onto in a moment. In the first half, he came off. Chiquinho came on left wing back. Johnny then slotted in the left centre back, and they moved Toti Gomez into that central role, and his pace did offer them a little bit more cover against Teemu Pukki's movement, because although he's not rapid, over 2 or 3 yards, he's so quick. And actually that offered Wolves a little bit more momentum within the game. Chiquinho was good, added an extra injection of quality down the right side. The back three looked a bit more stable, and they were able to dictate possession, really. But I mean, in terms of real clear-cut opportunities, they had Jimenez header relatively late on, which Angus Gunn tips over the bar. Superb save. There was one Pedro Neto shot that he drilled across the floor that went wide. But beyond that, Norwich contained them quite well. They kept them limited to the areas they wanted to. They got a lot of crosses into the box without really forcing the issue too much. And I think all in all, Norwich will be pleased with that defensive effort, given everything that we've spoken about this season in terms of their defensive record and how poor it is. And actually, they've now conceded 79 goals this season. So that just documents it. So I think in terms of that, as I said, they had a game plan. They came here. They largely carried it out bar one moment. And I think actually they'll probably be a little bit disappointed to leave only with a point, even though I probably feel it was a fair reflection of the contest. On to Teemu Pukki. I mean, first and foremost, what a footballer. I tweeted this just after he scored his 11th goal of the season, which is the same number as he got last time, although you'll remember he had 11 in January that season, and of course then didn't score another one for the second half of the season. This time he spread them out a bit more consistently, but to score 11 goals in a Norwich City team that scored 23 goals this season is quite simply staggering. Most goals, most assists. He is Norwich City's goal scorer in chief and has been their creator in chief this season purely on those statistics. And what is brilliant about him is his movement. He's so clever, he's so intelligent, he's so willing to chase lost causes and put defenders under pressure to win a throw-in that maybe another striker wouldn't even bother starting the chase for. His energy is top class. He leads the line with real quality. And actually, I think a few people inside this ground today would have been looking at him and thinking, if Wolves had Teemu Pukki up front, they may well have won this game. And ultimately, they didn't. But I mean, he's brilliant, isn't he? He's now scored 78 goals for Norwich City. That's, to put that into perspective, that is the same amount as Grant Holt achieved for the club. Pukki has also done it 2 games quicker than Grant Holt reached that margin. He's 2 goals off the top 5. Only 5 players in Norwich City history have scored more goals at this football club than Teemu Pukki. That is quite something to absorb, and it's probably not going to be something that we really look at and analyse and appreciate, maybe even until the day moves on when Teemu Pukki does depart Norwich City and the chapter is turned and the page is turned. I think you tend to look back on these things with a bit more reflection and a bit more praise than maybe you do when you're in the moment. But let's not dress it up. We're watching one of Norwich City's best ever players in action at this moment, and actually he's plonked in a team that is it's not their worst top flight team anymore, because they've obviously now surpassed the amount of points, but certainly one of the worst Norwich City teams for a long time. And he still managed to produce goals and score goals. And actually, I think he will have left today feeling disappointed. He had 2 chances in particular where he got sent away. The first by Kieran Dowell, that he put just past the post. The second by a lovely chip by Norman, where he raced away and poked the ball kind of under John Ruddy, who got enough onto it to make a save. So I think he'll probably be disappointed he didn't add to that. But all in all, 78 goals. Take the fact that he's done it at a higher level, as well as Holt, who of course had that one season in League One, which I'm not using that as a sort of stick to beat him with, because those were the circumstances. You still have to score the goals that he scored in League One, but Teemu Pukki has done it in the top 2 divisions. He's done it 2 levels at Premier League level, 22 goals now across 2 seasons at this level, in a team that has amassed pretty much the same number of points as Norwich have got this season. Is incredible. It's not spoken about enough, I think, by anyone really, particularly maybe outside of Norfolk, and that's understandable to an extent. But it is difficult to kind of see a situation where Teemu Pukki this summer isn't someone who is interesting teams, because the quality he has in, as we said, a team that doesn't create a lot, doesn't score much, is incredible. And Norwich City need to fight tooth and nail to keep him at the club next season, because he is arguably maybe one of 2, one of 3, one of 4 players at a push possibly that you could point at this season and go, yeah, Premier League quality right there. And Norwich are incredibly fortunate to have him. Spoke to him after the game, and he described this as, or he feels at the moment he's playing the best football of his career at Norwich City. So we shall see. We've got a whole summer to discuss his future. I think, to be frank, he's just looking forward to having a holiday and getting away from everything, and then maybe he will assess from there. But his 11th goal of the season, and he's going to be. I would be absolutely amazed if he is not crowned Norwich City's Player of the Season next year. To be honest, I think it's all but a formality, isn't it? And to be honest, I think it would be somewhat of a tragedy if he wasn't given that accolade, given everything that he's done this season, but also throughout his Norwich City career. He is some player. So look, it's 22 points now. That's one more than they got 2 Premier League seasons ago. I suppose it's probably up to supporters on how they look at that on an individual basis, and whether they take any kind of crumb of comfort from that. I would say probably not, given the narrative around this season heading into it was so different. The expectation around this season was so different. And it was actually it was a nice moment at the end of the game, actually. We saw for the first time the away dugout, which is just down below me to my right. I'm stood in the upper tier of this stand at Molineux. Everyone in a Norwich City tracksuit with a Norwich City badge on their chest got up and went over to where the Norwich City fans were in that far corner to applaud them and thank them in the final away game of this season. They put in thousands of miles this year and not really had anything to show for those, to be completely transparent. And this was one of their better away performances, and it was a performance that actually I think resembled a lot of what fans actually want to see from Norwich City this season. It was character, spirit, a bit of organisation, a willingness to fight. Not to suggest they haven't had that at any points, but what we've seen in recent weeks, what we saw at Leicester, what we saw a few weeks previous to that, Newcastle, we could list countless examples, is actually when Norwich City concede a goal, they tended to crumble in a similar fashion to the England Test team have recently, where they just kind of would go through batsmen. If you can switch that analogy to football, they would go through goals, and they couldn't stop the rot. And there was a moment this afternoon, actually, where Wolves came out of the traps. They obviously got the goal from Aït-Nouri, real pinball. I think Norwich players felt there was a handball in there. I felt there was in real time. Watching the replay back, I'm yet to see anything that looked to me really like I could say, yeah, 1,000,000% that was handball and should have been overturned. I didn't see that. So I think probably VAR and the referee got that decision right. But Norwich City had probably 2-3 opportunities to clear their line after Bolly's initial header. Aït-Nouri then pops up at the back post to nod it into the bottom corner of the net to equalise for Wolves. And from there, it felt like they had the momentum with them. They had the wind in their sails. It felt like they were going to go on and win this game. And there was a spell after that where they were putting balls in the box. They were having shots. It was in that period where Neto had a shot from distance that he dragged just wide as well. It felt like they were on course then to go and win the game, and that Norwich would succumb in the way that we have seen in recent games. That wasn't the case. They stood firm. They defended centrally really well. I thought Sam Byram, Grant Hanley and Ben Gibson were pretty solid for the most part. There were a couple, I thought they were maybe a little bit weaker in wide areas, but that is probably to be expected when you play this kind of formation. And I felt they stood up to it pretty well, actually, all told. And I know I can almost hear you through the screen saying, well, it's come at the penultimate game of the season when they're already relegated, and that's very true. And that's been the issue, hasn't it? Consistency. But in terms of, I go back to what I said right at the start, to watch the Norwich City team have a game plan, perform to that game plan, stick to that game plan, and for large portions of this game carry it out, I think has to offer encouragement for what's next. And if they can now, next weekend against Tottenham, going to be an incredibly difficult game given Spurs are still gunning for the top four. But if they can put in a performance like this, irrespective of result, where they can stand tall, make it difficult for opponents, then I think fans will be with them at Carrow Road next weekend. If they crumble to the way we saw at Leicester, then actually I think, and we watched the Wolves players do a lap of appreciation, if that is the case, I think you can already foresee a situation where the stands at Carrow Road is empty for that, and nobody wants that to be the case. It's been a horrible season for everyone. The players will have felt it as well. So if they can offer a bit more encouragement, and for example, I thought Jacob Sorensen came on in the second half and thought he's looked as good as I've seen him this season. Put out fires, showed a lot more energy, was mobile in the middle of the pitch as well. Lucas Rupp as well added a drive, I felt, in midfield when Gilmore and Norman went off. So there were considerably more positives today than perhaps there have been in Norwich City encounters recently. And actually, if I think back to it, and since Dean Smith has come in, there's been quite a regular theme, really, where Norwich City start games relatively well. There's been a few occasions, Leicester another prime example, where they have been in games at half-time and they've been winning games at half-time. Not in every game, but in some. And it shows that Dean Smith sets them up in the right way quite a lot. But then at points in games, there are tactical tweaks, there are changes that the opposition make. And I guess we will only find out the answer to this in long term. It's now for me a question of, is it that Dean Smith doesn't react to the changes that teams make, or is it that he doesn't have the personnel to react to the changes that are made? And that really is only a question that we're going to see next season. But that kind of felt the case here today, actually, that Wolves did have that momentum, that they were going through the gears, that they were beginning to kind of open their legs and find the momentum. And Norwich didn't quite stand up to that, but they did come through it. And that has been the resilience that they haven't had when those periods in games have existed before. Leicester, a prime example of that on Wednesday night. So there we go. It's nearly over, folks. It's nearly over. One more game, one more 90 minutes against Tottenham, which is going to be, for a lot of reasons, pretty daunting, I suspect. But Norwich City's away campaign in the Premier League is done. It's been pretty torrid, to be honest. I've been at the vast majority of the games on the road this year, as have obviously the supporters who have paid and made the effort and deserve all of the praise for what this season has been or hasn't been. They're one of the shining lights for sure, and it was nice that they got to share that moment with a group of players who haven't performed to the standard that we all expected come this year. But there we go. If you were here today, I take my imaginary hat, as I always do, off to you. I'll spin around actually, and then you'll be able to see, if I don't fall over, where Norwich fans were based. So they were based in that, let's get the camera straight, in that corner in the upper tier. Now, they had a bigger allocation for that in the FA Cup, just to put that into perspective. But there we go. One left, 190 minutes to go. Next Sunday, Carrow Road against Tottenham. Going to be a tough game. Only Harry Kane and Heung-min Son to worry about. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.